Hey guys, how are you today? Quick rant before we dive into today's chaos. As some of you might have noticed, YouTube's algorithm has decided I'm not special anymore. Shocking, I know. So now if you don't like, comment, or do a little backflip in the algorithm's honor, this video might just vanish into the void, never to be seen again. Seriously though, even a hi or "this is wild" in the comments helps way more than you think. It tells YouTube, hey, people actually like this channel. Maybe don't hide it from everyone. That can really help push my videos out to a wider audience, not just to my subscribers. So if you enjoy these stories and want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. Now grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the drama. You won't want to miss this one. This happened years ago, and while the scars have long healed, it's still one of those moments that lives rent-free in my memory. The kind of moment that makes you wonder who you were back then, and how you ever survived it. I was 20 years old, he was 26, and yes, I was married. But not by choice, not really. Our marriage wasn't some romantic whirlwind. It was coerced, gaslit, built on fear and manipulation. I had grown up without much stability, a string of broken promises, a rotating door of caretakers, and a deeply rooted fear of being abandoned. I was the perfect target for someone who knew exactly how to spot emotional weakness and exploit it. And he did. He made me feel like he was my savior, my only chance at a family. He love-bombed me in the beginning, flowers, gifts, whispered promises of forever. But the second I let him in, the mask slipped. Suddenly, nothing I did was enough. I wasn't supportive enough, attractive enough, grateful enough. He began to twist every disagreement into proof that I didn't love him, that I wasn't committed. So when he proposed, it wasn't romantic, it was a trap. He looked me in the eyes and said, "If you really love me, marry me. Otherwise, this whole thing is a waste of time." He said it like a dare, like a test. I was doomed to fail unless I surrendered completely. And I did. Because at the time, I didn't know I had any other option. The wedding was a quiet courthouse ceremony. No family, no friends. Just me, him, and a suffocating sense of dread that I ignored. I told myself I was being dramatic, that marriage would calm him, that having a child would bring us closer. Yes, we had a baby, a beautiful bright-eyed little boy who became my anchor in a world that felt like it was spinning out of control. He was the only good thing in that whole mess. Meanwhile, the relationship deteriorated rapidly. The abuse wasn't loud or obvious. It was slow, psychological, and constant. He'd disappear for hours, sometimes days, without explanation. He'd monitor my texts, criticize my clothes, and pick fights in public just to watch me squirm. Financially, I had no control. My name wasn't on the bank account. He'd hand me cash like I was a teenager with an allowance, then demand to know how I spent every dollar. Anytime I mentioned the word divorce, he'd scoff. "Good luck. You'll never survive without me." For a while, I believed him, until something in me snapped. Maybe it was the way he started disappearing even more. Maybe it was the way he smirked when I cried. Maybe it was the day he told me I was lucky he stuck around. But I finally saw him clearly, not as a partner, but as a captor, and I decided to escape. But I couldn't just walk out, not with no money, no support, and a toddler to protect. So I did what any desperate woman with a bookshelf full of psychology books would do. I started studying. I immersed myself in therapeutic communication techniques, motivational interviewing, crisis de-escalation, active listening. I practiced in the mirror for hours, teaching myself to control my facial expressions, flatten my tone, ask neutral questions, and mirror his body language. I transformed myself into the perfect emotional sponge. Not to fix the marriage, but to manipulate my way out of it. I wanted him to believe that divorce was his idea. It took months of pretending. I never argued anymore. I praised him even when it made me sick. I asked questions like, "Do you think this relationship is still giving you what you need? And what would it look like if we were both free to grow in our own ways?" Eventually, during one of our carefully constructed check-in talks, I shifted into full therapist mode and asked, "Why do you feel like you can't let go of me? What are you afraid would happen if you did?" He went quiet. Then, he laughed. He told me he'd been cheating, for a while, that she was younger, more fun, That he told her everything we owned, the house, the car, even the business, was all his. She thought I was just a bitter ex who wouldn't move out. And then he said this: "If you really loved me, you'd help me reel her in. Just let me get her hooked, and then we'll talk about divorce." I stared at him, calm, emotionless. Then I smiled, nodded, and said, "Thank you for being honest with me." Inside, I was shaking with rage, but outside, ice cold. I told him I supported his new relationship, that he deserved happiness, that I wanted him to explore what he needed. Meanwhile, I was texting landlords and securing childcare behind his back. I found a studio apartment, put down a deposit, and began planning my exit. But fate had one more twist in store. I lost my daycare provider. Suddenly, I had no one to watch my son during work hours, and he knew it. That's when he offered a solution. He said, "Why don't you let her watch him?" Meaning the other woman. His side chick. His more fun fling. At first I said absolutely not, but he guilt-tripped me. Said she was great with kids. Said I was being petty and vindictive. Said I should be grateful someone was willing to help me out. I caved. Just for a few days, I told myself. Just until I found a backup plan. On the third day, everything fell apart. My son, normally bright and bubbly, suddenly refused to get ready that morning. He clung to my leg, crying, sobbing, saying, "Please, please don't make me go." I knelt down and asked him why. He sniffled and whispered, "She locked me outside." On the porch, I was cold. I wanted to come in and she laughed at me. She said I was annoying. Daddy told me not to tell you I held him close, told him he'd never see her again, and called a friend to take him for the day. Then I got in my car. I drove straight to the house. My house. The one with my name on the lease. The one where my son had just been abused by the woman my husband cheated with. I didn't knock. I pounded on that door like I was the police. I screamed her name. "Open the door, now!" She peeked through the blinds and disappeared. So I pulled out my phone and called 911. "Hi, yes. There's someone in my house I don't know. She won't open the door. I'd like someone to come remove her." The police arrived quickly. I stood there on the porch like a storm cloud in human form. When they knocked, she finally opened the door, looking smug at first, then nervous. She tried to play the crazy ex-wife card, claimed she was watching the child, claimed she lived there. The officer asked for ID and proof of residence. She handed over a license, which listed a completely different address across town. Section 8, Housing. The cop turned to me. I showed them my license, the lease, and mail with my name on it. I opened the mailbox and handed them 3 letters addressed to me. That was all they needed. The officer asked what I wanted to do. I said, "I just want her gone." No charges, just out. She protested. She cried. She said she didn't have a car and nowhere to go. They told her to gather her things and leave immediately. I changed the keypad code as she packed. It was dead winter, just south of the Canadian border. The wind was sharp. She had on a hoodie and slippers, no jacket. As she stepped onto the icy sidewalk, carrying a tote bag and shivering, she looked at me like I'd just killed her dog. I didn't say a word. I just locked the door behind her. When my husband called an hour later, raging, I answered. He screamed, "You embarrassed her. She was helping you. You had no right." I calmly said, "Now she knows what it feels like to be locked out in the cold." And then I hung up. We finalized the divorce shortly after. I took my son, moved into my studio apartment, and never looked back. I mean, sure, it was petty. But was it justified? Years later, I still think so. Not the a-hole. OP didn't just protect her child. She avenged him. That woman locked OP's toddler out in the cold and laughed at his pain. That alone is unforgivable. And OP's ex. He enabled it. He watched this entire nightmare unfold and still had the nerve to scream at OP. The calmness with which OP handled it. Iconic. Calling the cops with that level of grace while OP was boiling inside? That's not petty. That's power. OP didn't act like a bitter ex. OP acted like a mother with fire in her veins. Respect. And now let's hear community's opinion. Let's be clear. That wasn't a babysitter. That was a predator. Anyone who thinks it's okay to lock a crying child outside in winter doesn't deserve shelter, sympathy, or forgiveness. You showed more restraint than I ever could. No fists, no screaming, just pure lawful retribution. The moment you changed that keypad code, generations of exhausted women everywhere stood and applauded. Your ex thought he had control until you flipped the script. And when you told him, now she knows what it feels like to be locked out in the cold. That line belongs in a movie. Your story needs to be required reading for anyone stuck in a coercive relationship. The way you strategized your exit like a therapist, coached yourself through the trauma, and handled everything with surgical precision is absolutely inspiring. You didn't just survive abuse, you outsmarted it. Your ex wanted control. You made him think he had it, and then walked out with your dignity, your son, and your spine intact. And when his side chick abused your baby, you burned her world down without even raising your voice. That's not petty, that's legendary. Your ex locked you in a psychological prison, and when he thought you were too broken to fight back, you studied the damn map and broke yourself out. That's not petty, that's heroic. And the woman who hurt your son, she got what she deserved. One cold walk in the snow is nothing compared to what she put that little boy through. You didn't press charges, you didn't ruin her life, you simply gave her a taste of the consequences. You're not the villain, you're the main character, not the a-hole 1,000 times over. My grandmother died leaving her estate to her 2 sons, my dad's brothers, and my brother, 23 male, and I. My dad had estranged my grandmother for the last 15 years of her life, but my brother and I maintain a relationship with her. In her will, she specifically noted that she was giving the share of her estate that would have otherwise gone to my father, to my brother and I, divided in 2. My parents have been extremely adamant that this money is theirs, that my father should have never been written out of the will, as the money was his birthright. My mom has told me that this money is the only thing that will give my dad his dignity back, so that he is of equal value to his 2 brothers who received money. My grandmother wronged them, and from their perspective, she did this to get back at them. I've dealt with my uncles and the lawyers of the estate the past 2 years as all of this has unfolded. I maintained a relationship with my grandmother up until her last day. I visited her while she was in palliative care. My father did not. He sent a text message to her through my cell phone during her last week. My father and mother have cut me off from the rest of my extended family, both on my dad's side and my mom's side. All for reasons I still don't entirely understand, as I was very young when it happened. They've told me a bit about why this happened, but it has been very surface level. They say it was because the family judged them beyond reasons that were repairable. When speaking to my parents about wanting to give them some money, but keep some for my future and to help me pay off my student loans, they responded by telling me that I'm not poor enough for this money. I don't eat Kraft dinner every night, I have a full-time job, and my level of stress financially is incongruent with my spending habits. Also, that I have trouble seeing things from a different perspective, because if I understood why my dad needed this money to retain his dignity, I wouldn't be fighting this. They also desperately financially need this money. My dad is unemployed and my mom only has her pension for them both. I'm worried my dad will cut me out if I don't give him my entire share of the estate. My brother is so scared of losing my parents that he just decided to give them the entirety of his share. I'm trying to stand my ground. I love my parents. I just want them to have some accountability for everything that's happened, and that I maintained a relationship with my grandma, and that means something. They are adamant that the money is theirs, and I'm only being given it because they allowed me to have a relationship with her and didn't cut me off from her. I feel guilty that I will not be maintaining my grandmother's wishes, but I also don't want to lose the only family I have left. Not the a-hole. It's not your dad's birthright. Your grandmother decided who she wanted her estate to go to, and it wasn't him. Stand your ground. Don't let his greed change your mind. Not the a-hole. It's your money now. Your grandmother left it to you, not your parents. Do not let them tell you otherwise. Also, if you are old enough to search and find the rest of your family, do it, and find out why they cut your parents off. I would risk losing the parents to find a better family. They're in hard times because your father doesn't want to work. That's not on you. Not the a-hole. The idea your mom has that money equals dignity is totally materialistic BS mega nonsense. Your money is not your identity, and anyone that is unfortunate enough to think it is, they are deluded. Money is not dignity. Money is not character. But that money is yours, legally, rightfully, and morally given by your grandmother. The rest of the BS is just a family squabble about status. Sack that crap off. If your dad wanted to be included in the inheritance, he should have thought about how estranging your grandma would affect that before it was too late. My 43 female husband is in his 70s and has been suffering from a myriad of health problems. Meanwhile, our youngest child is 3 years old, and we have a total of 5 kids ranging from 3 to 17. He's pretty much an absentee owner in his business now. His older 3 kids are in their 30s. They all decided not to go to college, but are all employed right now. I will be fine when my husband is gone, because I know how to run his business, and our homes are all paid for. But I want my kids to be able to get the independent head start in life, where they can have their own money and spend or invest it in a way they liked. No offense, but his older kids already had their chance to decide what they want to do with their lives, and I'm sure if they had asked my husband, he would have been able to help. However, every time his older 3 kids tried something, they were adamant that their dad have nothing to do with it, and they generally have a combative relationship with their dad. After his latest health scare, I realized I had to bring up estate matters with my husband. We sat down and talked, and I said that overall, if our kids were to split his assets 5 ways as opposed to 8 ways, that would be more money for themselves. And while it could never replace him, if God forbid he wasn't able to guide them into adulthood, it would be more beneficial to them than their siblings, whose windows of exploration are gone. My husband said he has always had a strained relationship with his kids, and he's been there enough through their childhood, trying to get them to value their education, but they all ended up taking unstable paths, and in the end, that was their doing. More discussion followed, but yesterday we sat down with his lawyers and had his will amended so that his older 3 kids get a very small lump sum, around $300, leaving our kids and myself as the primary beneficiaries. Am I the a-hole? My husband and I have been the most important people in each other's lives, and I do the same for him. You're the a-hole. You're 30 years younger than him, and just convinced him to cut his kids that aren't yours out of the will. Everything about this sounds shady. You're the a-hole. Those kids have just as much right to inherit, regardless of age. Also, just because that's the way the will is, doesn't mean those kids can't challenge it due to your influence. They could effectively drain the estate through court battles over it. $300 each? Yeah, you're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. If your husband's will included an 8-way split, an 8-way split was his intention, you went and put pressure on him to favor your children over his older children, and he eventually bowed to your manipulation. To do that after a health scare is heartless. This whole situation is just grubby. Your kids and his older kids are all in equal amount his child. You've just made sure that his final act towards them is to say, "Sorry kids, you don't matter nearly as much as my new family." That's going to hurt, a lot, and it's probably going to cost your kids any positive interactions with their siblings in the future. I, 25 female, just found out my husband, 26 male, has been cheating on me. We have been together for 6 years, engaged for almost 2 years, and married for just over a year now. So my husband's family would always take his side on everything, even if they don't have both sides of the story. My husband started drinking heavily in November 2022. They all saw how bad it was getting at family events, but still they made up excuses. He cheated on me 2 days before Christmas. I found out and consoled his mother, since she had to deal with his cheating father. She gave him a speech and said I should stand by his side while he is working on being a better man. 2 weeks ago, I caught him red-handed and called his mother to come and get him. I don't want him in my home or even near me. After the call, his brother phoned me and asked if it was possible that my husband can please stay, and I need to be patient. I told him if they don't pick him up, I will be calling the cops to escort him off the premises. My brother-in-law and mother-in-law finally came to pick him up. Once he was gone, I posted all the screenshots I had as evidence on his family's group, removed myself, and deleted the group, which means those images will be there forever. My sister-in-law is getting married in April. I was one of her bridesmaids. They already started to make my dress for me, and they paid for my seat to be there. Bear in mind, I paid for the dress, so that is on my account. Once she saw the screenshots, she sent me a message saying how sorry she is about everything, and she hopes I'm okay. The next message was, "I really don't want to sound selfish, but are you still coming to the wedding? The dress was made just for you, and I'm not asking someone else." I was shocked, but kindly replied, "I'm not sure. There's a lot of things going through my mind at the moment. I'll let you know." The next day, while I started to pack my stuff to move, she asked again, will I be attending? I said, with everything going on right now, I think I will pass. It's not only that she's making everything about her, it's also I have to be around my cheating husband's family, smile, and wave and act as if nothing is wrong. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law that I will not be attending the wedding and giving up my seat they paid for? Not the a-hole. I'm flabbergasted with all of this. The sister-in-law would still expect you to be at the wedding? With the series of events with your husband, your reluctance to attend is more than warranted. I don't think there's enough social bandwidth in the world to convince me to play nice in that situation. Either the family is really clueless, or extremely optimistic that you and your husband will patch things up. No a-holes, except your husband and his mom and brother. I can understand why she needs to know, depending on when the wedding is in April. Maybe she could have waited to ask, but I can see why she felt the need to ask. But ultimately, while I'm sorry this is affecting her, her brother did this. He chose to cheat, and at least 2 members of his family chose to try to guilt-trip you into just accepting it. You're not obligated to be around them. No a-holes, but she was okay to ask because she really needs to make alternative plans. And she was actually nice for asking you, and not just kicking you out of the wedding. But you are fine not to go. I, 53 female, and my wife, Abby, 50 female, have been together for over 30 years, and married for 20. We adopted our son, Jack, when he was a toddler after his parents had died. He is now 20. Bringing him up wasn't without its difficulties, but all in all, he was a good kid. Good grades, good judgment, didn't cause trouble on purpose. He always loved spending time with us, watching TV with us, and in his teen years, even began cooking with us and became somewhat of a Gordon Ramsay. I noticed things changed a bit after we adopted our daughter at the age of 7, Sam. He was 15. She was a troubled kid, bounced around a lot in the foster care system. For a while, he loved her and really enjoyed being around her and showing her that this house was safe, which was basically all the things my wife and I were trying to do. I want it to be clear that we never asked him to be a parent. That was our job. He always offered to do things with her and would often choose to be around her rather than his friends. He never had to babysit her, but he did on occasion during small emergencies. He seemed slightly annoyed with her, but always told us that it was just a bit frustrating to deal with her sometimes. For info, when I say Sam was troubled, I mean she'd hide food, hide herself, and shut down a lot. There was no anger. We still deal with the echoes of some of this today. We do have her in therapy to this day, and she's much better. Soon after his 19th birthday, he met a girl, 18 at the time, and his personality began to change. He grew resentful of us, of Sam. He'd make these weird or hostile comments toward Abby or me, and occasionally I'd catch him telling Sam about her bio family. I'd always try to shut it down, but he'd make some excuse and go home when I tried to talk to him. I don't want Sam getting into contact with her family. It's a toxic family that was no good and very dangerous for her. Earlier today, me and the wife were speaking to him about his behavior, and he said that his girlfriend told us that we kept him from his family on purpose during his entire upbringing, and that adoption was a traumatizing experience that tore families apart. This stunned us, since we were always as transparent as we could be. What remained of his family didn't want to talk to him, and that's why we adopted him. My wife tried to explain that we never tried to do that. He called her a lying bee and to shut up, and that we're baby snatchers. Immediately I cut in and told him to leave and not come back unless it's to apologize. He left, saying that he hoped one day Sam wisened up to us lying about her family as well. That we were awful for ripping a girl away from her real family. I don't understand his logic, but he was clearly upset at us for what we did. I wish I hadn't kicked him out so we could have talked it through, but he was just throwing verbal abuse at the woman who cared for him most of his life, and I couldn't watch it. So am I the a-hole? Nope, not the a-hole. It sounds like you've been saying and doing all the right things where both kids are concerned. Also, by age 20, he should have much better control over his actions and words. He had no right to talk to you like this. Hell, by the age of 6, I knew better than to talk to my parents this way. I don't think you should backtrack at all on the ultimatum. If he gets in touch, you can be relieved or happy, etc. But stay firm on your rule. He still has to apologize, and it has to be heartfelt. No throwaway stuff like, all right, I'm sorry. He needs to know why he's sorry, and the apology should reflect this. Also, something else might be going on with him. Not an excuse, but maybe an explanation. Not the a-hole. Your priority right now is to protect your daughter. Jack is a double threat to her. First, he pushes her towards a toxic family, and secondly, he ruins a stable, safe home she so desperately needs. In this situation, he's the aggressor, she's the victim. He needs to take responsibility for his behavior, because I doubt he would feel responsible if Sam was hurt as a result of his actions. Gentle, you're the a-hole. As a parent, it is your job to establish and hold firm on boundaries while still presenting unconditional love. In that moment, you were justifiably angry. But to tell a child that was already abandoned by one set of family not to come back to your house for any reason is an incredibly harsh blow. Ask yourself, honestly, if there is a behavior in which your parents would have responded by telling you that you were not welcome in their home. What does that mean when a parent says that to a child? You can tell your child that speaking in that way is unacceptable, and you can enforce that in a variety of ways. I, 27 male, am planning on proposing to my girlfriend of 2 years, Maddie, 27 female. Planning on doing it by a lake, and I've already talked to her family, and they will be there. I've talked to my friends and her friends. For my immediate family, I decided to only invite my dad. He said this was an a-hole move because it would be tough not to bring his wife, and it would create more of a rift. This will also be how the wedding will be, him getting a solo invite. So I told him if he doesn't want to come, I understand. But he should know I'll save the postage if he doesn't want to come to the engagement. Me and him went back and forth, so I decided to post here for a judgment. The situation with my sisters and mom stems back to my sister's wedding 2 years ago. My two sisters are Bella, 29, and Sarah, 25. Bella got married back in 2019. I liked the guy, and we became decent friends when I was a groomsman. I live halfway across the country, so traveling back is tough, and I only do it for big events. I was heavily involved in my sister's first wedding. I went to the showers, bachelor party, wedding, and it was a pretty expensive couple weeks, but I was willing. 2 years ago, my sister cheats on her husband with her current husband, gets a divorce, and engaged within like 3 months. I was across the country and not tuned into the situation, but my mom's stance on it pissed me off. She was always the big, do the right thing type, religious and judgmental of others. Whenever she told me about the second wedding happening, I was like, am I supposed to support this? She got livid and said I need to be there and support as a family. I said if she would pay my ticket, my hotel, and all other expenses to come home, then I would. But I'm not dropping $1,000 to come home for a cheater's second wedding within 3 years, who didn't even respect her first wedding. My mom lost it on me, and she said she would not pay for me, but I had to be there. I said, I heard you're dropping $10,000 on this wedding, so you'll finance a second wedding, but not your son's plane ticket home? She hung up, and that's pretty much the last conversation we've had. I didn't go to the wedding. I also refused Bella's husband's offer to be a groomsman, which pissed off my other sister. Because of all the drama, I was told not to come home for the holidays. I was given the silent treatment by my mom and sisters. I started dating my girlfriend around this time, and we went on a trip. I posted pics of us, and my sisters commented under the photos rude things about me being too cheap to buy a plane ticket, but will spend money on trips. So I blocked them both, and haven't spoken to them since. My dad is the only one I keep in contact with, so that's why he's getting a solo invite. He wants the drama to end, and thinks me giving a solo invite puts him in a losing spot. I told him that it's his wife's fault and the situation is where it is. So it's really not my fault. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, but you should have told them you'd be there for the third wedding. Not the a-hole, but understand you have put your father in the middle of an impossible situation. You need to tell your mom in very clear communication why you didn't make the trip to the second wedding without anger. Offer an olive branch that if she does XX, you will work on your relationship with her. She is your mother, and time is far too short for BS. Not the a-hole. And that was real fast how your religious and pious mother suddenly pulled the family card to excuse her daughter's lying, betrayal, and cheating. Is sister the golden child? Sure feels like she is.